don't want what we know out there.
How a person can go from really almost nothing to becoming a millionaire by owning rental properties.
He would always buy these flip houses, and I just remember thinking, this guy is crazy. Why would he buy that house?
In the past decade, there's been a huge surge in the peer-to-peer short-term rental market.
Become an insider. So you have to know the rules before you get the game.
Every second counts. So make every second count.
Welcome to the Real Estate Jam. Whether you're just beginning or the best of the best, we're glad you're here. We will share successes, failures, and strategies for the action-taking real estate investor. And now to your hosts, JD, Annabelle, and Melissa.
Hi, and welcome to the Real Estate Jam podcast. I'm JD, and as a common occurrence these days, Annabelle and Melissa are not with us because they're busy running my business. Today, we're super excited to have you guys here to listen to Ramsey Kyle. He is the owner, operator, CEO of realfocus.org. He's also a real estate investor in our very own Bay County. This dude also happens to be an active duty Navy Seaman. And we connected through Facebook. He seems to be a solid dude, and we're going to get to know him right along with you guys. So, Ramsey, hey, man, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Yeah, no worries, man. Thanks for introducing me as a Navy Seaman.
I should have asked about, like, hey, what should I call you? I should have just said he's an active duty Navy guy, and
I'm a senior chief in the Navy. But yeah, my job in the Navy is explosive ordnance disposal. It's Navy Special Operations, and I've been doing that for about 15 years now. But yeah, glad to be on the show, brother.
Awesome. And well, usually the way this goes is we just ask you to introduce yourself to our audience, and then we'll see where the conversation goes. So if you want to kind of give us your backstory and tell everybody why it's important to listen to what you have to say.
Yeah. So I guess the people that I would be talking to the most would be anyone out there who has a full-time job and is either just getting into or looking to get into investing in real estate. And that's where I was in about 2015. But the story about how I got started, I now own 22 rental units, and I've been working on that since 2015. But even before that, I had been really into like finances and investing and saving as much as I could. And the route that I was taking was the one that a lot of people do. I'd read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'd read up on a lot of the Dave Ramsey, snowball effects. And I read a book called The Automatic Millionaire. And what had ended up happening was I found myself every the 1st and 15th we get paid, right? And I would go take my money out of the bank, follow Dave Ramsey's little method, and cash it all out, put it in these envelopes. And my wife one time handed me an envelope labeled fun, and I opened it up, and it was $75 for the month. And I thought, how ironic is it that the word fun is on 75? That's the opposite of fun. And I was thinking to myself, like, man, I'm sitting here trying to save as much as I can, and we were able to put away about $500 a month, and we were pretty proud of that. But the Automatic Millionaire was telling us, hey, don't drink your Starbucks, don't drink your Red Bulls, don't dip, don't drink alcohol, don't go out to eat. Pretty much anything that sounded like it was supposed to be fun, you weren't able to do it so that you could save. And that $500 a month that we were saving, man, do the math on that, $6,000 in an entire year. I was pretty proud of it, but we ended up selling our house in Imperial Beach, California, just south of San Diego. And I'd only owned that house for about 3 years, and we ended up making $40,000. And I was like, wait a minute.
Somebody's been lying to me.
Wait a minute. I made 40 grand. All I had to do was live in a house. Like I didn't have to stop going to the movies and stop eating out. I was like, all I did was live in this place, and I made 40 grand.
What year was that?
that was in 2014. And in fact, that same house, we just moved back to California. It was $250,000 on the market for $250,000 more than we sold it for. So I made my 40 grand. I'll chalk that one up to a L right there, but still.
Hey man, but if that was the catalyst that propelled you to now a few years later rocking 22 units, then I would count that as a win all day. It might have been, you may have lost the battle on that one, but it set you up to win the war, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, ended up leaving with 40 grand in the bank, and we took that money. And when you move from a place like California, San Diego, to Florida, right, to the Panhandle, I got stationed in Panama City to be a dive instructor at the Navy Dive School, and we sold our house in San Diego and moved down there. And you're looking at places at like a third of the price, much larger places. And in fact, my first investment property that wasn't the house hack, I bought a duplex for $40,000. And you can't buy a mailbox in San Diego for $40,000. Like it's just, we're talking $500,000 to be able to purchase anything in California. So I took that money down to Panama City, and me and the wife were looking for houses. And whenever I was growing up, my dad had told me that if you can ever buy a duplex and live in one side, rent out the other, and cover your rent, then you'll live much more freely, right? And that wasn't the case out in California. You just couldn't afford to buy multifamily. But in Florida, I could. So I sat my wife down and I showed her all my plans on buying a duplex or a triplex, and we're going to be landlords. And she's sitting in there in the living room with my kid on her lap and the dogs all around her, and she's pregnant, and she's like, how about no, never, we're not going to do that. And just crushed my dream, right? but what I ended up hearing after she explained herself a bit was that she didn't want to share a wall. So it wasn't a no, it was a yes, but, right? And that got my gears turning. And so I went and talked to the real estate agent, told him, hey, I'm looking for a multifamily with detached units. And we ended up finding a place, and it was in the Cove in Panama City. Beautiful place. I mean, long Spanish moss off all of the old oak trees, a lot of historic homes in there. And the house that I found was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house with a 2-car garage, full backyard. I mean, it had hardwood floors, updated appliances. I mean, everything was perfect. And then on the back, it had 2 cottages that matched the house. Like these cutesy little cottages with alley access. There were 1-bedroom, 1-bath. Had everything that you needed. And you could not tell from standing in that house that those cottages were part of the place, right? I said, oh man, this is perfect. So I went and showed my wife the house and asked her if she liked it. And she's like, yeah, this is fine. I could live here. I was like, all right, cool. We're going to get it. And she's like, well, I got a couple other houses that I like. And I said, look, check it out. See those 2 cottages on the back? The mortgage for it, the mortgage for the house was going to be $1,200 a month. And each of those cottages rented out for $650 a piece. Said, babe, we can get paid $100 a month to live here, right? And and we ended up buying that place. And I mean, we were living at that point. We felt freer than we had ever felt, because we could, like, instead of trying to take away everything that we love to save $500 a month, we're now getting $1,500 in housing allowance, and the tenants are paying our mortgage. So we were basically pocketing $1,500 a month, and we got to live in the big house. Like, like the 2 little cottages, those people were paying for us to live in the big house for free. I was like, this is insane. I can't believe that this exists on this earth. So we did that, and that allowed us to save up. I mean, now instead of saving $500 a month, we're saving $1,500 a month. And, you know, do the math on that, that's $17-something thousand a year. And we did that for 1 year, and that's when we bought that $40,000 duplex. And kind of the progression, and something I didn't realize, it was every step that I did along the way, I did a little something more, pushed the envelope a little bit further, and kind of expanded my comfort zone. And it started with a house hack. Because it's really, anybody can do a house hack. Like, it's not hard to be a landlord when the tenant's next door, right? I don't recommend telling them that you own the place if you can. Like, have that arm's length. I screwed that one up in the beginning. But once I got going, like, anytime something needed to be fixed, it was extremely affordable. I got pretty handy doing it. And then I'm making it so efficient by updates and stuff that now, I've got a manager on it, and it cash flows perfectly. And I'm able to hold on to that asset and have it be paid off by my tenants. But it went from a house hack to a duplex. And then now, and that duplex, man, I bought it for $40,000. It rented out $450 a side. I put a 30-year mortgage on that thing. So my mortgage was literally like $280. And so I was cash flowing $600 plus every month off of a $40,000 purchase. Dude, this is blowing my mind. I mean, and given this is in 2015, which the market's coming up pretty good. But from there, I upped it to, all right, cool. Now I have a duplex that's not at my primary residence. I'm comfortable with multifamily. I'm a landlord now. And then I ended up going and applying for a commercial loan and buying a 7-unit apartment complex. Did the BRRRR strategy on it. So bought it, renovated it, re-tenanted it, refinanced it, and repeated, right? And I ended up buying that thing, man. We called it Crack City because it was that the 7-unit apartment complex. I'm telling you, if I could go back, I would definitely learn how to hire people, contractors, because I was in there doing some nasty stuff that there was drug paraphernalia, there was cockroaches, that it had a cat problem, like it had cat pee all over the place. I mean, there was Unit 5 was buying drugs from Unit 1, and whenever I bought that place, 4 of the tenants left town. Like one of them, I swear to God, I'm not making this up. One of the tenants, when they drove out, they just drove straight through the fence. What did I just buy?
Exactly like every multifamily I've ever looked at.
Yeah, and there was when I closed on the place, I asked for the keys, and I got one key, and I said, "Oh, is this a master key?" And the dude selling it says, "Your master key is going to be the heel of that
foot." And that's when you knew you'd been had.
Oh man.
Hey, well,
the funny thing about Bay County, though, is that this property got a view of the bay. I mean, it's on a lake. It's butts up to $1 million property, but it was absolutely ragtag, and it matched the rest of the neighborhood further from the water. But whenever I renovated it, I said, I'm not going to match the backside of this neighborhood. I'm going to match the people in the water. And I did. I made it look like a very cute, it's these little cottages. There's 7 little cottages. I updated them and painted the outside and put some landscape in there. And now when people come rent from me, they're paying the prices based on being close to the water, not being in the middle of, slumlord 100 air next door, right? So yeah. But and that's pretty much everything that I've done in Bay County.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to unpack there. One of the things I want to hit on is that house hacking thing, especially for the young military guys. I'm not sure how the Navy does their financial education, but if it's anything like the Air Force, it's pretty much invest in your TSP, save your money, don't go to a club and blow all your money on drinks and good times, right? That's it. But they don't tell you what to do with your money. And one of the things I wish I would have realized when I was younger, when I first moved out of the on-base living quarters, right out of the dorms, I wish I would have got into that house hacking thing, if we're going to live together in an apartment with a bunch of my buddies, I could have just as easily moved into a small house or a duplex and rented out the other rooms to my buddies and had that pay off my mortgage, especially when we had the VA loan, zero down loan, so accessible. So I always try to tell the new military investors, and even not even investors, but just the guys that work for me, that you need to be looking into this house hacking thing. It's not for everybody. And, in San Diego, it might not even work still, with prices being so high and cash flow being, hard to come by. But that's just one base. And I guess with you guys in the Navy, a lot of times you're in these nice locations around the coast because that's where it's at. But if you're into these smaller mini markets where you can afford cash flow, and house hacking is something you have the option to do, if you're just going to get your foot in the door, I think that's a perfect way to do it. And I don't know, would you recommend that to everybody, or you want everybody to go through the Dave Ramsey course first and then, realize after the fact that they should be doing something like that? What would you tell your young guys?
Well, so I would say that you definitely need to, you need to educate yourself on actual finances, right? Go into your career financial counselor or whatever. That's just some other broke dude telling you how to spend your money. That's all it is. It's a government employee who read some thing that's going to tell him how to not be broke, but he's still broke and he's trying to teach you how to get rich. You will not hear me now, guys. If you plan on retiring in the military, when you retire at 20 years, you are not retired. You are halfway to retirement. And if you don't do anything right now, you're going to have to go get another 20-year government job. And you're going to have to, I'm an E8 in the Navy. If I make E9 before I get out at 20 years, my pension is like $2,500 a month, right? $2,500 a month. That is not going to support my wife and kids. And I'll be 38 years old, right? That's not going to support this lifestyle. I would have to get out and go do another 20 years. So if you don't want to do that, then you need to start, and if you're listening to this podcast, you already are, but reading up on actual investing, and look for the advice and advice. Your command career counselor, financial counselor doesn't know jack about investing. They can tell you how to save, yes, but we don't make enough money in the military to really be able to save, right? You can put your money in your TSP. You can't touch it till you're 65. That's kind of like getting the envelope that says fun on it, but inside it says you can't have it till you're 65. Look, at 65, you don't want to be the guy who's just learning to dance when the party's over, right? I want to retire at 38 years old and be free. And I imagine that you probably do too, right? The real estate is the simple man's way of building wealth. You don't have to be a genius on this. It's extremely simple because it is genius, right? So to answer the question, yes, put some money away in your TSP. Put some money away in I call them certificates of depreciation. But what you're just going to do is you're going to learn that doesn't make you any money. You lose the race to inflation. Whenever you buy real estate, you're just taking your dollar and you're storing it in land, which can't be devalued by currency, right? It goes up. It wins the race to inflation. Now, to answer your question about house hacking, look, house hacking, you can be as creative as you want, especially in today's age with Airbnb and VRBO. You can rent out a bedroom. So you with $0 for the VA loan, you can buy up to 4 units. Anything 4 units and less is going to be considered residential property. 5 units above is a commercial. You get a whole different loan and the VA won't fund it, right? But with zero money down, you can buy a house with 3 or 4 bedrooms in it, and you can rent out the other bedrooms. Take your mortgage, divide it by the number of bedrooms, pluck yours out of there, and charge everybody else enough to cover your mortgage. You're in a house hack. You're living free. Your mortgage is getting paid down. Those dudes they're just paying rent. They're not saving anything, right? I recommend buying up to a 4 unit if you can, because then you have your own space. And nothing saying that 4 units, there's nothing saying they can't all have 3 bedrooms and you run it like a little hotel, right? You can do house hack. You can rent out space in your yard to campers. You can, you know what I mean? You can rent anything. You can rent your car out, right? So it's all about financial freedom and finding ways to make money off what you own. And if you don't own anything, you can't rent it out. So yes, I recommend house hack. In fact, been in for 15 years. I've got 22 units. I just finished a house hack out in California because my mortgage out here is, I mean, dude, we're looking at like a $4,000 mortgage for just a normal house. So I converted one of the bedrooms or two of the bedrooms into a little Airbnb, blew a hole out in the wall and made their own entrance. And now my mortgage just got cut in half. My mortgage is now $2,000 a month, right? Because I make $2,000 off the Airbnb. That's the power of a house hack. And I don't ever see the tenants. I don't talk to them. I give them a code. When they're gone, me and my wife go in there and clean up, make $50 on the cleaning fee. That's a bonus. I mean, dude, it's free money. like, I don't know why anybody wouldn't do it, you know? So.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. The other thing that you touched on, and I'd like to dive deeper in, is you don't live in the market that you're investing in. And I know we were talking before we started to record, there are some challenges that you're having to overcome, and you're also in some partnerships and there's challenges to overcome there. Why don't we talk about that? How do you recommend, we'll start off with, how do you recommend doing the virtual thing? And are you using property management? What are your boots on the ground? Are you, what is it that you're doing, and how are you making it work from all the way across the world and, soon out on a boat in the middle of the ocean?
Yeah. So going back to kind of what I talked about earlier, which was the comfort zone. When I first started, I thought I had to do everything. And I was listening. I remember I was talking about Crack City. I was renovating one of those units, and I'm sitting here drywalling one of the pieces of drywall. I'm mudding in one of the pieces of drywall in the kitchen, and I'm listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast in the background. And the guy on the podcast was saying, he's like, look, there's some poor soul out there with a thing full of spackle in his hand, mudding up drywall. I swear to God. He's like, and he knows dang good and well somebody's willing to do that for $10 an hour. And I'm like, dude, this guy's sense. He's like, are you really an investor if you're trying to save $10 an hour doing something you hate? And I'm like, dude, I was like, is this a radio or is there somebody watching?
He's talking to my soul.
I was like, man, this guy's giving me all the feels. He's exactly right. And sure enough, I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this. In the middle of it, like I didn't care if the mud dried. In the middle of it, I stopped, called somebody. Some dude came over there. I said I'd pay him $10 an hour, and he was a drywall guy. He's like, sure, whatever. And he did all my drywall.
He probably did it better than you could too.
Oh man, dude, so much faster. Like I was like, why are you working so fast and paying by the hour?
Because he wants you to hire him again. That's why.
Yeah, but so I started looking. I was like, well, what else am I doing that could be done for $10 an hour? Lawn care. I was mowing my own lawns, and I was using a push mower because I was being cheap. Some dude showed up in like a $5,000 lawnmower and mowed my lawn in like 8 minutes and charged me $100. You know what? I don't care. I don't care how much it costs because I didn't have to do it. And that just freed up bandwidth for me to be doing the revenue generating tasks, which was finding deals, getting bank financing lined up, and building partnerships. And I know you guys have heard it 1,000 times. Don't work in your business, work on your business, right? And I will say there is something to when you're first starting out, doing that work yourself. There is something to doing like landlording yourself. And the only thing you may learn is how much you don't need to do it. But when you understand those tasks and when you do them, like for me, I like to figure something out and then pass it on to someone else and then advance what it is that I know. And so I don't do drywall anymore. I don't paint anymore. I don't do property management or leases or show places. No, I've got a great property manager In fact, she started out with me. She was not a manager before. She was a tenant of mine, and man, she just had the right attitude, and she was hungry and was going through a transition in her life. And I tell you what, I gave her a book. I think it was Rich Dad Poor Dad. Said, you read this and I'll help you out. She came back in 3 days and she was like the first person. Usually people just, okay, and then you never see them again. She came back and was talking about the cash flow quadrant. I gave her the 4-hour work week, and she came back and talked about like we would have dinners, sit down and talk about this stuff. And eventually I got comfortable enough to just let it go. And she took all of my properties, or all of my units, got her license so she could be a manager, and then managed all my stuff. And it was her idea to convert most of them into short-term rentals. And it was actually out of necessity, because she had a lease with me on that. She was a tenant, and then she moved in with her husband, or eventually got married, moved in with her husband, but she still had a lease with me, and she didn't want to break it. Like, she was that true to her word. She's like, I don't want to break this lease even though I live there. She says, but I want to short-term rent it on Airbnb. I was like, I don't, like, why? Why should I let you do this? You know, I was being hard-headed, and she goes, because it'll get deep cleaned every week. And I go, I'm sold, do it. Right? And from there, she rented one from me. Then once she started making money, she now rents like 7 of my units and just turns around and Airbnbs them. And then I started furnishing them and having her Airbnb, and I just pay her like 20% of the income. But they make so much more money. And COVID and Hurricane Michael have a vote in that, right? But on a typical day, they make a lot more money than a long-term rental. So there's good and bad to them.
Well, let me ask you this then. What does your team look like? Is it just you, your partners, and her, or what kind of organization do you have right now?
Okay, so I invest with a guy out of Shreveport, Louisiana. We are getting out of Shreveport, Louisiana, and I'll tell you all about that. But I'm involved with a buddy of mine who runs a different company that I own with my brother, and I trust him. He's very good at business administration. He's good at task, like the stuff that I'm not. I'm very good at seeing like the end result. What is the opportunity? That is kind of like, I don't know if you call me a visionary, but what I'm not good at is organization and taxes on time and like tracking all the numbers and everything like that. Like I just get sidetracked. So I need somebody who can keep me on task with that stuff. And that's my partner, Brandon Magorowski. He is that, like, the grounding rod to all my stray voltage, right? Because I'll just go off on a tangent. But in Panama City, my real estate, or my property manager is the girl I was telling you about. Her name's Nicole Ludwig. And then I have a real estate agent that I trust, because he came and just chatted with me when he saw me renovating a property, and he's also a real estate investor. So anytime where I was kind of just dealing with single family real estate agents, know this, guys, that not all agents are the same. Some of them they just sell cookie cutter homes. Find you a real estate agent who invests themselves. They understand the verbiage, they understand what you're looking for, and they won't waste your time. And that's my real estate agent, Kay McNeil. If he sends me something, I know that there's money to be made. He's already kind of vetted it, because he wouldn't waste his time sending it to me if it wasn't. So that right now is my team. There's a couple of guys that I've been working with in the Navy that have retired in Panama City that I'm partnering up with on my most recent deal, which is a hotel down right by the beach. We intend to take that thing and we're calling it the Retro Retreat. I don't know if that's the final name, but we're going to take it. We're under contract right now. It's a block from the beach, and we're going to take it and make it like a retro style motel with, pink flamingos with sunglasses on and all the cool vibes, man. So I'm going to finalize the design plan pretty soon. We're actually, just now getting into the due diligence period now, but pretty excited.
Are you able to talk numbers, purchase price, and what you guys hope to do, and what that's going to increase the value to, or just in general terms, what that kind of looks like?
Yeah. So right now, I'm just now starting to get some of the documents, and what I'm learning is that the seller he collects on Friday all cash, so you can kind of imagine that his taxes aren't going to reflect actual numbers. There's no record keeping. It's one of those properties. It's kind of like my Crack City property, right? Like
Only in a better area.
But I don't know what it is. Everything that I buy is cinder block with like low-lying roofs or metal roofs, some sort of durable roof, and good bones. But they're all crapped out, and I have to take them and renovate them. And sometimes that's just what it takes, because if you go to buy a brand new shiny property, the money's not going to be there. Somebody's already made it when they sell it to you. So usually I see that, and that's what I look for, is those properties that, a hurricane's not going to knock this thing over. You know what I'm saying? Like that, you can't knock a hole in it because it's cinder block. Like, good luck. You know what I mean? A car could drive into this thing and it wouldn't phase it. But you can make them pretty. So as far as numbers, right now we have it under contract for $1.1 million. Got 4 guys involved, and we're all going to do a joint venture on it. The asking price, they had it at 13 cap, but I can tell you right now, like anytime you're doing your due diligence, the NOI that's reported and the NOI that you are going to assess is going to be way different, and it's going to be a point of contention on the asking price. Just run your numbers, and understand what they are. Think of every expense that you can, and then add 10%, because things break, right? The NOI reported was NOI net operating income reported was about $240,000 a year, and they were claiming about $35,000 a year in expenses. And I could tell you right now, quick math, $35,000 wouldn't cover taxes and insurance.
No.
So after I did my numbers, and a good rule of thumb is just times the income by 0.5, like cut it in half, and that's probably going to be your expenses. And you have a lot of risk built in. So, but I did it, and it ended up being about 45% projected expenses on the income. And with that, the purchase price we're looking at getting it for a 13.5 cap. Now it needs repairs. So, just to give your listeners some ranges or some kind of like an investor discipline without getting too nerdy about it, at least in Bay County, right? If you're going to buy something that is a well-oiled machine, doesn't have any disrepair, it's a nice property, you're looking at an 8 cap or lower, right? And I probably wouldn't buy it unless it was an 8 cap. If it's a property that needs repair, but it looks okay, it just needs some updates, you're looking at a 10 cap. If it's in bad shape, don't pay more than a 10 cap for it. Try and get higher cap rates, because that's how you're going to actually make money after your repairs. So that's kind of like the disciplines that I look at. You can look up how to convert net operating income into cap rates and stuff if you don't know what this stuff is. It's really is commercial jargon. But pretty much the gist of it is, if anything that you buy, it's going to cost you 10% of the price to run it. So if you say, oh, it gets 12% of whatever the 1% rule is, it gets 12% of the asking price every year on rent. Well, you're only going to make 2% a year, because it's going to cost you 10% to run it, right?
Well, how are you finding these deals? Are you pulling these from commercial broker pocket listings? Are you beating the street, doing your own direct mail, that kind of stuff, and running acquisitions? How are you coming across these deals?
I wish I could tell you that I was sending out the mailers and had a great system, hiring somebody in the Philippines to make cold calls or what. It's not. Here's how I've found every deal. Every deal that I have found has been one that has just been listed by a lazy agent, right? And why do I say that? Because there's usually one or two pictures of the outside, and nobody's going to take the time because they're surfing the web to actually dig into this thing. And so it just gets overlooked. And and I'm telling you, I've bought about 5 properties now, and every one of them has been on the MLS for a long time. It's been on Realtor or LoopNet or whatever, but it sits there and gets overlooked so much because it's a crappy listing with crappy pictures, and it's outdated, and you can't get any information off of it, that eventually that price starts to drop and drop and drop and drop, and then it'll come back on my radar, and I'll go make a lowball offer. Some desperate fool's gonna sell it to me, but it's just what it is. Like for people just getting started, here was one of my favorite tricks. I can pretty much guarantee what you're doing is you're going on to Realtor and you're clicking the multifamily tab and you're seeing what pops up. That's not going to find you a whole lot of good listings. What you need to do is go on to Realtor and change your search to 5+ bedrooms, 4+ bathrooms. You're going to get a lot of mansions, but as you scroll down, you're going to see properties that don't look like mansions. And what those properties are multifamily units that are listed as single family because whoever went to sell it knew somebody who was a single family only agent and they didn't know how else to list it. And that's whenever you get in and you can actually start to realize that whoever owns that property is just a mom and pop. They're not some sort of REIT, and they're looking to get out, and they probably don't care too much about the asking price or the sell price, because if they really did, they would have found a real estate agent who was an investor and listed with them. I have found every one of my properties that way. Same on LoopNet, and they have never been listed as a multifamily property. In fact, the hotel that I'm buying isn't listed as a multifamily property. It's listed as a hotel, but if you really look at it, it's a multifamily property in a hotel zone. So that's my little nugget for you.
Hey, that's great advice. We are one of those, well, we don't use virtual assistants. We got cold callers in the office going to do that. So once we get off this podcast, I'll make sure I get your criteria in case we ever need to reach out with a multifamily deal.
Perfect.
So if you were going to give your best resources, you know, I want to be respectful of your time, but if you wanted to give your best resources, books, websites, podcasts, where would you send somebody to get the base level knowledge that they need to start doing this?
Yeah, so the answer you're probably going to get all the time, which it's worthy of the credit, is if you have not read Rich Dad Poor Dad, you have to read it. It's just your knowledge. Like, don't go talk to your command financial counselor. Go read that book and get an understanding of the cash flow quadrant and just understand where you're at and what you've been doing. But once you actually start to dive into the real estate world, create yourself an account on Bigger Pockets, get into the forums and just ask questions. Unapologetically ask questions. You do not understand how close you are to the right answer, right? There are experts who have thousands and thousands of units and years of experience that will write you a custom written answer just because they want to give back. All right. So create yourself an account on Bigger Pockets, listen to the Bigger Pockets podcast, listen to every other real estate podcast, Real Estate Jam, listen to it all, right? You probably drive to work 30 minutes every day. Instead of listening to music, listen to investing podcasts. All right. And then as far as books go, this one's written by Keller Williams, the founder of Keller Williams. I forget what his name is. Dang it, I probably should look that. But it's called The One Thing. Mm-hmm. And this is, for those of you guys on the video, I've got it tabulated and color-coded and highlighted. And I refer back to this book all the time because, remember I was telling you, I'm not very good at systematically approaching things, I guess. I'm good at coming up with a plan and a vision. Well, this book helps me with that. And I'm telling you, you can look out like 10 years from now, come up with what it is, what you want to do. And using this book, it'll help you step back to what you can do today.
All right, guys, welcome back. I don't know if you're watching this video, you might notice that we've had a change of venue, change of clothes, and some of us need a haircut. We had some major technical difficulties, and I think it's been about a month. Is that right? Since we were originally talking.
Yeah, about a month, and now I'm completely across the other side of the world. So,
yes. So a location change of thousands of miles and a pretty sweet hotel room. So anyways, what we left off with was you just got done explaining how awesome the one thing was. And then we were about to go into how great of a market Shreveport was and why you love that one so much.
Yes. Yeah. So since it's been a month, I might have to give some backstory on that. But the gist of it is had invested in Panama City, Florida, and was doing so well that a buddy of mine reached out, and I invest with him in different businesses and stuff, said, hey, I want to get into real estate. And I said, okay, cool. Where do you live? He says, I live in Shreveport, Louisiana. And I gave him kind of the rules of thumb and the metrics that I used in Panama City and said, just do this in Shreveport. And if you find some properties, bring them to me. I'll invest half the money and we'll be partners, right? So essentially to me, real estate was real estate. It was cut and paste from market to market. And that'll kind of show you how dumb I am. Just naive enough to do it, but not smart enough to know not to, right? And so we did that. He brought me a triplex within, he's a super motivated, super smart dude. He was able to find properties that did meet the metrics, and he brought me a triplex in like 3 weeks. We bought it. 3 months later, we bought a 6-unit apartment complex. And what I noticed after about a year was that I did my taxes in Panama City, right? All of my Panama City properties. And I was looking at the screen and was like, dude, I'm crushing it. This is awesome. Like Panama City is doing so well. And then I go to the different tab on the Excel spreadsheet and I look at the bottom line for my apartments in Shreveport, and I like my jaw. I hadn't been tracking it because it was just kind of like, I don't know, at the time.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, it was exactly. I wasn't in the market. I wasn't doing stuff daily. And I looked at it, and over that 1 year period, I had received $250 in rental income, right? And what was killing us was extremely high occupancy, extremely high turnover rates. But occupancy because of the turnover rates. People were late on payments, and then they would be on late payments, and they would leave, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't know why this was. I asked my partner, Brandon, I was like, dude, what is going on in Shreveport? He goes, I don't know. I just thought this is how real estate was. He says, no, man, like I am making money, a lot of it in Panama City, Florida, and Shreveport at the same time and space was literally losing money and losing value. And so I said, I got to look into this. So I started listening to different podcasts and watching YouTube videos for the first time on how to research a market. And I came across a guy named Neil Bawa. They call him the mad scientist of multifamily. And this dude, he uses data extensively to read markets first. And that's where I went wrong, right? I found a property first and then just assumed that the market would work out. But he teaches you how to go from macro to micro market. And as he's on the podcast, he goes, he says, I like to give quick tips to all of my listeners. If you want a quick tip, the worst market in the United States is Shreveport, Louisiana. Right? Dude, that caught because I was just riding down the road in my truck, and that caught my ear. Wait, whoa, what?
He's speaking directly to me.
Yeah, I swear he was coming out. Like, listen to me, Ramsey, you are not smart, right? So I said, Brandon, you got to listen to this, man. And we both listened to the entire podcast. Everything that he had to say just sounded like pure gold. In fact, we signed up to go to his little training thing in LA and left 2 weeks later. Wow. And I gotta give props to him. Their boot camp is really good. You learn a lot of higher level stuff on how to look at the United States as a whole, and then dial it into an actual market that's tangible.
What'd you say his name was? Neil what?
Neil Bawa.
Bawa?
Neil Bawa. Yeah, they call him the mad scientist of multifamily. He's a brilliant guy. He was in the tech industry for a long time and then got out and took basically all of the analytics and sciences behind data analysis and applied it to real estate. And I can go over kind of the five what they call them real focuses that he talks about, and it's not complicated stuff. Like, yes, you can nerd out as much as you want looking at Excel spreadsheets and all this data analysis, but it comes down to 5 things. Are they making more money when they get there? Are the prices of the houses increasing? Is crime decreasing? And are there jobs, right? So if you think about those 5 things, every market's based on people, right? They're coming, they're making, they're living, they're doing crimes or not doing crimes, and then they're having employment. So when you break it down like that, it's really easy to kind of take, okay, how much of this data actually matters to me? Because you can look at so many things that the average person's not going to be able to understand, like cap rate compression and absorption rate and all of this stuff, right? And get lost in the sauce. But if you just focus on those 5 things, then you'll be safe. And he kind of goes through it as 20%, 30%, 40% below 500 and above the national average, just kind of the order. So in the past 20 years, 20% increase in population, 30% increase in median household income, 40% increase in household condo value, below 500 on the crime index, which it's out of 1,000. So that's basically below the national average, and then above the national average on job increase. And so those 5 metrics broken down, you apply it to any market in the United States, and that'll be able to tell you if the market as a whole is a healthy market. It doesn't mean that every property in that market is a good investment. You can buy a crap investment in a good market. You can buy a good investment in a crap market, right? So know that. But that's the macro approach to it. And once you figure out which markets make sense within, I guess, your region of interest, now you can go and kind of apply the same metrics to each individual neighborhood. I will say, once you get down to the neighborhood level, it's not just like local, it's hyper local, because you can be across the tracks in the same zip code as a really good investment area, right? I don't even know if you call it a neighborhood. You'd be in the same neighborhood just across a different street and strike out.
Right.
But I will say, in the better markets, when you do your market analysis, your chances of striking out are much lower, right? So we applied this and we looked at Shreveport, and Shreveport's population did not increase by 20%. In fact, it dropped by 2%. Okay. So if you think of 20 years where the population of the world is increasing, that there have been people who have left, or more people that have left than have come in the past 20 years. If you think of what happens to a market like that, that market is built to hold a certain amount of people. So if they leave, that just means vacancy, that many units are going to be available, meaning that supply and demand is going down, meaning that rents are going to drop. And whenever rents drop, the economy suffers quite well, right? Because the entire city's tax income and property values, all that stuff's connected. So you have to kind of understand, well, why are people leaving that city? It's typically because the jobs have run out. Some sort of, like in Detroit, like the auto industry,
Right.
Crapped the bed, everybody left and went and found jobs somewhere else. But it just gives you those key indicators to dig a little deeper and figure out why from there, right? So that was some of the best information that I had ever been given in my life. And I think it's going to prevent me from investing in another market like Shreveport.
Yeah, I think it's important, when the reason that we started investing in Shreveport is because that's where we were at when we started investing. But as I've grown and moved away, seen different areas, I've definitely realized that the type of investing that you're doing in Shreveport is not the type of investing that I like the best. And, fighting over tenants for $500 a month rents that are going to do, skip out on you and stuff like that. Having to discount, we were having to discount 3 months worth of rent, right? The rent was $350 in one of our duplexes. And then we were discounting 3 months to get a tenant in there. And so we weren't actually giving them 3 months, but we were giving them no deposit, no first month's rent, and then compensating them for the whatever day that they moved in on it. So essentially it's 3 months rent. Now it's only $350, but when you're looking at your ROI on the end, and then they'll stay in there for 3 months not paying rent before we can finally evict them. So now you're out 6 months rent. It doesn't make sense. And our experience in Panama City has been so much better. My experience in Montana is so much better. It was just that town. As a matter of fact, when you're talking about people leaving, causing the economy to go down, the jobs to leave, which when the jobs leave, the crime goes up. So all of those 5 things that you're talking about, it's like, the perfect storm right there in Shreveport. Matter of fact, I just saw this last weekend, there was 3 people shot in Shreveport, and they're starting to compare Shreveport crime to Chicago. And anytime you're getting compared to Chicago in terms of violent crime, there's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you have to think about like how why is this, right? So I actually looked at across the state of Louisiana, and the average dollar spent per student across the state of Louisiana was in the 30s, right? As far as investing in education.
Mm-hmm.
Shreveport was at $11.12. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, that means that they're not spending as much money on education. Okay. Well, what does that mean? Well, if you're a large corporation looking for a talent pool and where you're going to place your business, which is going to bring jobs to a market, right?
Right.
You're looking for a place that has a high educated, low crime workforce. And then when you do, to think that these larger corporations aren't going to do their market analysis and pick something, there would have to be some absolute massive concessions offered by the city for any organization to move there without the talent pool that they're looking for.
Right.
Concessions meaning tax breaks, free land, grants, stuff like that. And that's makes a city spiral down even further, because now they really don't have any benefit of the corporation moving there because they don't pay the taxes that they owe to live there. So It all really does start with a city needs to invest in education to increase the talent pool's talents, right, to attract businesses. And that's a long play, and it's a hard one, especially if you don't have the money to do so and people are leaving your city. But as an investor, you've got to be able to take a look at these things, right? And all of this is public information.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that attaches to what we call the human domain, any city that is, I guess, emotionally intelligent to the human domain and says, okay, we need to invest in education, law enforcement, we need to bring jobs here. That's the market, or that's the telltale sign of a winning market, right? So, and I've actually compared almost every market in the Southeast and found quite a few of the markets that are doing pretty good. Obviously, everybody knows Atlanta, but Jacksonville, Florida is doing really well. Tallahassee, surprisingly, is a good looking market as well.
That's the one that we're looking into going in. We're doing our market research on it right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of scared of Tallahassee, mainly because it is, I know it's the state capital, but it is heavily reliant on student housing. And I'm wondering what COVID does, or what COVID's vote in student housing is. I don't know enough about it, but I do know that a lot of the available inventory in Tallahassee right now is from the student housing market. Mm-hmm. So it seems like people are starting to exit that. But yeah.
So that's some pretty high level stuff. I think it's important stuff that everybody needs to go. But what do you tell our investors who are maybe sitting right in the middle? Maybe they're driving down the road, right? And they just heard, hey, Shreveport's the worst market in the country. Get out of Shreveport. This is the reason why. What do you tell these guys that have already been there? Maybe they're in a bad investment right now, but maybe they're not. Maybe it's a perfectly good investment, but what do you tell these guys that are where you were at when you were driving down the road and heard about the glories of
Well, so the people, specifically to the people in Shreveport, the one thing that I will say that has continuously increased is the median household condo value. So investing in Shreveport, for me, multifamily investor, buy and hold investor, bad juju, right? Like, or bad approach, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it seems to be developers and flippers could potentially make some money there, because it for me, it doesn't make any sense on how people are leaving and the jobs are going away, but the condo values are still increasing. Okay. So I don't understand it, but I mean, there's still money being circulated in Shreveport.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
just means your game has to be a little bit sharper. You got to be a little bit more creative. You got to understand what that local economy does want, where they want it, and provide the solution to that problem. The main thing that it means is you're likely not going to have a lot of competition from out-of-state investors, because they're going to look at the market and say, no way, which creates in your local market probably opportunities for you. So don't be discouraged if you live in Shreveport. I will say I wouldn't buy a long-term investment, a buy and hold or multifamily in Shreveport, unless the price was absolutely perfect and it was in a good area. So,
Mm-hmm.
but for everybody else, right? Everybody else who's in a market and you want to invest, you feel extremely comfortable investing locally. Okay. You still need to know your market statistics. I would say it's not quite as important. If you only intend to invest local, there's nothing going to change your mind and you want to invest local, you still have to understand, you're going to know that market better than anybody, right? Because you can do what's driving for dollars. You can actually really understand down to the micro level what that market is doing. Okay. But you still have to understand get involved with your local real estate groups, get involved, like the city planners, the property appraiser's office, right? Understand what direction that city's moving in, because there's going to be certain pockets of development that you can focus on and kind of, I don't want to say you don't want to plan for appreciation, but if you're going to buy a duplex and you buy one in the bad part of town or the growing part of town, well, knowing the difference between the two is going to make a huge difference whenever you sell. So a duplex isn't a duplex, right? You got to figure out where the right one to buy is. But that's the advice I would give to somebody who's like just getting started in their local market. Don't be scared of it. The best time to get into real estate was in 2010. The second best time is today. Okay. So don't wait. Just because you don't live in a good market. Get started, and eventually you'll understand your market and you'll be able to move into other markets too.
Right. And it's a lot different. You pay attention to a market a lot more when you have money on the line. So if you have gotten into a rental in one of these areas that maybe is not the best, you're really going to be paying attention to it as opposed to trying to learn the market from afar. You see numbers on a spreadsheet, you look at inventory on the MLS and days on market and stuff like that. But when you actually have a rental in that market, you're really paying attention to it.
Yeah, you're forced to.
Yeah, whether you want to or not sometimes, or you don't, and then you look at your paperwork at the end of the year and realize you only had $250 coming in, or even worse.
I don't recommend it.
Even worse, you look at it and you realize that you lost a lot of money and had to cut ties. That's what we had to do with our multifamily in Shreveport, because it just, there comes a point where you don't want to throw good money after bad, and you need to make that decision, even if it hurts a little bit sometimes. It's really, really a shot to your pride when you have to make that decision to walk away. But it was the best thing for us. And do you still have your triplex there?
Yeah, we can't sell it. Nobody wants to buy it.
Yeah.
No, we actually, the reality of it is we said we would wait until it was fully occupied to put it on the market, right? Like a good investor would. And that's been 6 months. So it actually goes on the market November 1st. They're really not bad apartments. It's just a bad market. So.
Yeah, I got you. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up our conversation. I apologize again for those technical difficulties, but I'm glad that we got to bring you back on just to make sure everybody knows where they can find out more about you and how they can get a hold of you if they need to. You want to share some of that information? I know you're going to be a little preoccupied for the next few months, but you got a website, email, Facebook, something?
Yeah, so I'm deployed right now to the Middle East, but I still have access to internet and stuff. Still check my emails daily. You can hit me up at ramsey@realfocus.org, and that's RAMSEY @realfocus.org. Or you can hit me up on Facebook, and that's Ramsey Blankenship.
All right, Ramsey, I really appreciate your time today. Hey, guys, if you got any value from this, go ahead and reach out to Ramsey. Let him know that you heard about him and how awesome he is. And go ahead and give us a review, like the podcast, share it with your friends. Hey, man, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on today. I love talking to you.
Thanks for having me on, brother. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Jam.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and updates, check out our website, shorefrontrestorations.com, or find us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Shorefront Restorations. If you have any questions, feel free to drop us an email at info@shorefrontrestorations.com. See you next episode.